The air was crisp and cool, carrying with it the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. It was perfect weather for gathering crops, and for a change, it wasn't hot and humid like it had been for most of the summer. In the fields surrounding the settlement, the work continued at a frantic pace. Men, women, and children worked together, gathering in the last of the summer's bounty. Miles Standish stood proudly surveying his men as they cut down the tall corn stalks, gathered up the ripening beans, and picked the fat pumpkins and winter squash. They'd lost so much of their spring and summer crops to drought, disease, and hungry insects that he'd feared the worst. But now, looking out over the full and fruitful fields, he felt a swell of relief and happiness. It was truly a good day's work. Meanwhile, Governor Bradford, William Brewster, and John Howland were out hunting. They had much luck in the spring or early summer when they'd gone on hunting trips. But now the woods teemed with game, fattened by the summer's growth and preparing for winter. Deer, wild turkeys, and other animals, unaware of the danger stalking them, moved through the forest undergrowth, completely unaware of the danger that stalked them. Within minutes, the hunters returned to the settlement, each with a deer slung over his shoulder. Other hunters arrived soon after, bringing with them more venison, and because some of the men had brought their dogs, they also returned with rabbits, which would stretch their food stores even further. As the week wore on, the settlers' relief grew. With all the wild game and an excellent harvest of corn, beans, and squash, they would have enough to eat through the winter and likely into the following year. Soon, every family had gathered in their crops, and the excitement began to build. What should they do to celebrate? Some wanted to hold a great feast. Others wanted to hold a prayer meeting. Still others wanted to do both. Finally, they agreed to hold a 3-day festival, which they would spend in giving thanks to God for sustaining them through such a difficult year, praying for the coming year, and celebrating with a great feast. On the morning of the first day of the festival, the settlers gathered together for a sunrise prayer meeting. As the sun rose higher in the sky, they broke into groups. The men went to work preparing the feast, while the women and children gathered flowers and greenery to decorate the tables and the governor's house. By midday, the feast was ready. Tables groaned under the weight of roasted venison, plump pumpkin, sweet potatoes, cornbread, succotash, cranberry sauce, and dozens of other dishes. Wild turkeys and ducks were prepared as well, along with fish caught in the nearby rivers and bay. Miles Standish carved the first slice of roasted venison and held it up for all to see. "Let us give thanks to the Lord, who has given us such a bountiful harvest and sustained us through this year of hardship," he said. And then everyone dug in. Over the next 3 days, the settlers ate, drank, sang, and danced. They invited the Native Americans who had helped them survive, and they shared stories, games, and songs. When the time came to part, the Native Americans presented the colonists with a great white flag that had been decorated with images of deer and turkeys. "We are your friends," the flag proclaimed. "We come in peace." The settlers treasured the flag, which became known as the Mayflower flag, for many years, hanging it in the town hall and displaying it during festivals and celebrations. But not everyone was happy. Squanto watched from afar as the colonists celebrated, and a deep sadness fell over him. His people had shown the colonists how to plant corn, catch fish with nets and lines, and gather edible plants and herbs. He'd even helped them hunt wild turkeys and other animals. Yet the colonists did not remember what it was like when they first arrived, cold and hungry, and how the Native Americans had welcomed them, sharing their food and teaching them how to survive in the wilderness. In less than a year, they had forgotten all about it, and worse, they had begun to encroach upon the Native Americans' lands. Squat and his people would never forget what the colonists had done to them and their way of life. And he knew that someday it would come to an end, either with a treaty or with war. For now, though, he turned back to his village, hoping that one day the colonists would remember the friendship that had saved them. The next morning, the colonists awoke, feeling refreshed and renewed. After a long and difficult winter, spring had finally arrived. As the settlers got up, they saw something that made them stop in their tracks. On the ground in front of the Mayflower lay a large white flag, the one the Native Americans had given them the day before. But now it was covered with strange symbols and markings. When the colonists looked closer, they realized that the markings were of a bird that looked a lot like a wild turkey, and below the image were the words, "Beware of the turkey." At first, the colonists were confused. Then they realized what it meant. Squanto and the other Native Americans were warning them not to eat the very food they had given them as a gift. To the Native Americans, the wild turkey was a sacred animal, and they believed that the colonists had insulted them by eating it. The colonists were ashamed. They had not meant to disrespect the Native Americans. They had only been trying to celebrate their survival, but they knew that they had to do something to make amends. So they gathered together all of the remaining wild turkey and other game, and they prepared a feast for the Native Americans. Then they went to Squanto's village and presented the feast to him and his people. Squanto was pleased. He accepted the gift on behalf of his people, and he promised that they would not harm the colonists. But he warned them not to eat any more sacred animals. The colonists promised that they would never eat any part of a wild turkey again, and they kept their word. From that day forward, the colonists treated the Native Americans with respect, and they never forgot that they had almost started a war over a misunderstanding. The Mayflower flag, which had been a symbol of peace between the two cultures, was displayed in the town hall to remind them of what had happened. And every year they celebrated Thanksgiving to give thanks for their survival and to honor the Native Americans who had helped them. So ends Chapter 7 of The Pilgrim's Progress. Our hero still has many challenges to overcome before he can reach the celestial city. But let us be thankful that we have made it this far on our journey with him. Let us also take a moment to consider what lessons we can learn from those who have gone before us. The Pilgrims were a people who had suffered great hardships. They had crossed the ocean in a cramped and disease-ridden ship. They had endured a harsh winter in which half of their company died. They had struggled to plant crops in a strange and unfamiliar land, but through it all, they had held on to their faith in God and to their hope for a better future. We can learn from the Pilgrims the importance of faith and hope, no matter how difficult our circumstances may be. The Pilgrims were also a people who had been welcomed and helped by those who had lived in this land before them. The Native Americans had taught the Pilgrims how to plant crops, how to hunt and fish, and how to live in harmony with the natural world. Yet, the Pilgrims had forgotten this important lesson, and they had begun to encroach upon the lands of the Native Americans. We can learn from the Pilgrims the importance of respecting and appreciating the cultures and traditions of those who have lived in this land before us. Finally, the Pilgrims were a people who had learned the importance of giving thanks for the blessings we receive. Every year, they set aside a day to give thanks for the harvest and for the many blessings they had received throughout the year. We can learn from the Pilgrims the importance of taking time to appreciate all the blessings we receive, big and small. As we come to the end of this chapter, let us remember the lessons the Pilgrims have taught us. Let us have faith and hope in our darkest moments. Let us respect and appreciate the cultures and traditions of those who have lived in this land before us. And let us take time to appreciate all the blessings we receive. If we do these things, we will be honoring the Pilgrims and their legacy. I'm sorry it's taken so long, but I wanted to make sure I got this right. I've been working on this adaptation of The Pilgrim's Progress for over a year now, and I'm so excited to finally share it with you. I think this story is more relevant today than ever before. We live in a time when it seems like everyone is in a hurry, and no one takes the time to appreciate the blessings they receive. I hope this story will remind all of us to slow down and appreciate all the good things in our lives. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.